In this video, we're going to look at the top 5 most common questions that are asked in UK student visa interviews, and I'm going to help you plan fantastic answers that are going to increase the chances of being successful. So let's start by looking at what entry clearance officers are really listening out for and what they're going to do with that information. So there's certain things that if they start hearing or thinking, they're going to lead them towards a refusal decision. So if you've got a contradiction with the application, that's going to be a big problem because that's suggesting dishonesty. So make sure you know exactly what's on your application form because you don't want to be saying something different because that is a big red flag. If you can't speak English properly and you're saying that you're going to be doing a UK degree and your English in the interview doesn't match up with the English representations that you've got with your English tests and what you put in the application form, that's going to be a problem. If you're just missing really fundamental knowledge, like you just don't know very much about your university choice, that's going to be a big problem. And overall, if they're not convinced, if there's more than a 50% chance that you're not a genuine student, that is going to lead them to a refusal decision. There's certain things that are going to lead to a little bit more scrutiny, but in and of themselves are not entirely going to cause a refusal. It's somewhere in between. So minor inconsistencies where something that you said in the form isn't exactly what you're saying in the interview. There's a slight difference that could cause more scrutiny. So you want to be very clear on exactly what you put on the form. And if you have any differences between that, you're going to have to highlight that and explain it away because you do not want to be contradicting anything you put in an application form. If you've got weak English, that's going to cause a little bit of additional scrutiny. The way to get around that is make sure you've prepared really well for your interview. Poor knowledge of your course or university, that's just another red flag. And if you've just got weak evidence, for example, they ask you about your funding sources and you haven't ever really added it up properly, then it's going to think, well, if you really thought this through, and it lends them a little bit towards the idea that maybe you're not a genuine student because genuine students should have worked out all of their finances before they got to the interview stage. On the other hand, here's some good signs. If you've got well evidenced funds and you prove with a very high level of certainty that you're definitely going to be able to fund your visa, that's great. No intention of working in the UK is a slight positive because they're looking for people who are genuine students. And if you're coming here to work, that's not entirely matching up with a student, but it's not currently banned. You can do a little bit of work in the UK while a student. So you don't have to say you're not going to work. If you do have to work to support yourself, you're going to have to be honest on that. But no intention of working is a slight positive. Strong links to home country career is a slight positive because it shows that you're more likely to return at the end. Academic excellence, if you've got an amazing track record at school, that's a really good positive because that's very much associated with genuine students. Perfect match with the application form. So you've studied the application form, you know exactly what you've said, and there is no contradictions, and it's totally consistent, is really good. And if you're showing really great fluent English, that's another good sign. And one of the ways to improve your English fluency in the interview is to be very well prepared, to have planned out your answers and thought about what you're saying. So you're not going to have to think in your home language and then translate it and start speaking. You're going to have it planned out, and that's going to be massively helpful. 2 boxes you need to tick to get the visa is you have to show you're a genuine student and that you're going to comply with the restrictions of the visa. So look up the current restrictions around working and how long the visa is in duration, and make sure you convince them that you're going to satisfy those restrictions and you are a genuine student. If you tick those 2 boxes, they have to give you the visa because you have met the requirements. But the biggest rule is to be honest. Some of the things that I might suggest in this video are things that are helpful and are positives. For example, no intention of working. But if that's not the honest answer, that is not what you're going to say. You're going to say whatever is the honest answer. And if you are a genuine student, you should have nothing to be afraid of. If you are dishonest in this interview, it can lead to a 10-year ban on entry into the UK. So make sure you're honest. There's big consequences for not being honest. So let's move on and look at the actual question. So question 1, what are your career plans after graduation? And this is one where you definitely have to have thought through, because if you're spending an enormous amount of money and coming to the UK to go to a university, but you haven't thought about why and what you're going to do with this qualification, that is a big negative sign. So that's why they ask it. So a good thing to do is talk about the links to your home country. So how is getting this degree going to further your career in your home country, because you want to be giving them an idea that you're likely to return. You don't have to. You may be able to get sponsorship and stay, but you want to also talk about what that could do in your home country, because you don't know whether you're going to be staying or whether you're going to be going back. You want to make sure it's very well researched. A good tip on this is to quote earnings in your home currency. It's just a little tip that you're not thinking all about coming here to live, that there is the possibility that should you not get the sponsorship, perhaps that you are going to return. So always talking about returning is a positive, unless that's not the genuine answer. But you should be aware of the UK potential and your home country potential. And a link to your past experience is a very strong link. So if you've been working in a certain career, then you're doing a job linked to that career, they can see exactly why you're coming to the UK to do that and how getting this degree is going to further your career. So it makes a lot of sense. So if you get those three elements in your answer, it's going to be a strong answer and you're going to get through that question and satisfy them. You know why you're doing this degree and how it matches with your career. So let's look at question 2. How will you fund your studies? And this is one of the easiest questions to answer if you've done your preparation. So basically, you're just going to show that your costs and the money coming in are balanced. And if you show those are balanced, you're going to pass this question because you've satisfied it. So you're going to know exactly what the rent is. So you're going to have looked at the price of living. You're going to know your tuition fees from memory, and you're going to take an estimate for food costs. And I would say currently, if you look at the date on this video, I would say £100 a month would be a reasonable estimate, but you're going to check up on that. And then you're going to have a buffer of a few £100 a month left over for everything else. So for example, the rent might be 500 a month, so that's 6,000. Tuition fees of say 20,000. Food of 100 a month, that's 1,200. And then you put a buffer in, so you might say something like you're budgeting on £28,000. And then you're going to have to show that you have over that in savings, sponsorship, family support, or scholarships. And if you can make those two numbers balance, you're going to be successful. So I would suggest just writing out all of those numbers, have that prepared, maybe even type it up in a table and bring it with you. And that's going to show them that you've got all the money that you need and you're not going to have to rely on public funds, which you are not allowed to do. Question 3, do you plan to work in the UK? And so there's a good answer and a bad answer. You must check the current visa restrictions. Currently, you are allowed to mark a certain number of hours, not very much. And so if your funding falls short slightly, then you may have to talk about working in the UK. It's not a cause for refusal if it's allowed under the terms of the visa, but it will make them think a little bit more. So ideally, you would be saying no or possibly, or talk about the restrictions of the visa and how you're definitely not going to exceed that. Ideally, you would be fully funded, so you wouldn't need to work in the UK. And you're going to talk about the job opportunities at home as well. They are good things to mention and they are associated with genuine students. A bad answer, yes, is not a cause for a refusal as long as it's associated with doing a course and you're doing a very small number of hours. If you're not familiar with the rules and you're saying you're going to work 20 hours a week when 20 hours a week is not allowed, if you've got a huge funding shortfall, that's going to cause a lot of problems. So if you couldn't get anywhere close to funding your studies without working, that's going to cause a lot of additional scrutiny. So for example, if your tuition fees are 20,000 and you've got 3,000 to your name, that's probably going to result in a refusal. You have to be able to fund your studies. And if you can't do that, that's going to be a big problem. And any indication that you're going to break the visa rules around working, so giving the impression that you're coming to the UK not as a genuine student, or that you've already lined up a job that clearly would not be consistent with being a student, then that's going to be a big problem. So make sure you're complying with the UK's laws around working during your studies. So know them, show compliance with it, focus on ideally as much of the positives as you can and avoid any of the negatives. So if you've got a funding shortfall that is enormous, you probably shouldn't be applying for the visa in the first place. So stick to this and you should be successful on this question. Question 4, where do you plan to live during your studies? 3 things you're going to have to talk about is that it's available, it's affordable, and it's appropriate. So you have to show that the accommodation that you're looking for is actually likely to be available. You can speak to your university, and they usually have schemes for foreign students so that they can get accommodation supplied by the university. That's the most strong form of evidence that you can use, is showing that the university accommodation is available. You're going to look back at your budget and show that the typical rent in the area where you are and your income match up so you can afford it, and that the accommodation is appropriate. So you're going to be living somewhere where you've got the permission to live. You're not going to be moving into somewhere that's being sublet illegally, and that it is sufficient for one person to live. So you're not, for example, just going to move into a hostel for a year. They would consider that to be a very negative sign. So you're going to show that the accommodation is likely to be available, that it's affordable, and that it's appropriate. And if you can tick all those three boxes, you're going to be successful. With the availability one, you don't necessarily have to show that you've got it 100% fully booked and no one else can have it. It has to be reasonable that there is some accommodation that is likely to be present for you. So moving on to question 5, why did you choose this university? And one of the questions that I've heard of being asked is an entry clearance officer putting up a map and saying, can you point to the university? And, someone might point in Ireland when it is, in London. So you want to know where your university is on a map, just as a very basic level of knowledge. You're going to show that the course and the university is linked to your interests. A great thing that you could do is know some names of some professors, know their research interests, and know the courses that they teach, and talk about how that got you interested in the university. Think about what is special about this university. Is it a research-led university? Has it got a gold-rated teaching and learning award? Something that makes that university in that department stand out as really special. Know exactly where it is on the international rankings. A great thing that you can do is compare it to your home universities. And if you can show that the university that you've been given an offer in Britain is superior to the university in your home country that you got an offer from, the story of I'm coming to the UK to go to university and not doing it at home is much stronger, because you go, well, you wouldn't accept the one at home when you've got this much better university in the UK. So if you can show that contrast, that's a really great thing to say. The strongest bit of evidence would be to talk about having already visited the university, but that's unlikely and not required. So if you get as high up this pyramid as you can, you're likely to be successful in this question. So hopefully this video has been very useful to you and help you prepare for your UK student visa. And finally, thank you very much for watching.